My last semester of college, I met this girl that I really started to like, and having the great timing that I've always had, the day after I graduated college, and she graduated college, I asked her out for the first time. I should say that I went to college in New York and didn't have a place to stay after my dorm ran out. So I asked her out. I think we went out once, and then I had to move home, back to Delaware for a while. And so I stayed in touch with her and talked to her a little bit. And I think I went up to visit her in New York because she was there for a few more weeks, and then she moved to Chicago. And around that time, I think I finally got a job in New York. So I actually got a job in New York at the end of the summer, shortly after she had moved to Chicago. So I stayed in contact with her. I wrote her via like IM at the time. I think AOL Instant Messenger was like just beginning to be a thing. Still had a dial-up account. It was around that time. Like I said, I'm getting older, and we had a bit of a long distance relationship for like a month, 2 months. I don't even remember. And so one day I decided I was going to go visit her in Chicago. And I had my first job, so I had a little bit of money. Not much money, but a little bit of money. So I went on Priceline, and I bought myself a plane ticket. Now, this was the first time I had ever been on a plane. I know it's kind of weird, but I had never been on a plane until I was like 20-something, because I lived on the East Coast, and you could drive everywhere. And also took the train places. It was great, and buses, and vehicles with wheels. They're great. I was on boats, too. I don't know what I'm talking about. But anyway, so I took a plane there. Now, I just want to make just a quick story about the plane ride. I had to fly to Columbus to get to Chicago from New York. And on that first flight, that was my first flight, we landed so hard in Columbus that like the whole plane just shook and people screamed, and a couple guys made a joke. They were like, "Oh, you can always tell the Navy pilots." And I just thought that's how planes landed. I've never been on a plane that's landed that hard in my life since, and I've been on like hundreds of planes since. So I just kind of laugh now when people scream, because I thought planes always sort of crash landed, as my first flight ever did in Columbus. I recommend having a bad first flight if you want to get over fear. That's my point. So I went on to Chicago. I get to Chicago. I take a train, a subway, above ground train. It's both below ground and above ground. A train to her neighborhood, and I knock on her door, and it's pretty early in the morning. She knew I was coming. I should make this. It sounds like I'm surprising her, which when you hear the rest of the story, you would think I would surprise her. But I showed up, and I knocked on the door, and she opened the door, welcomed me, and then she went back to bed. So that was a bad sign, right? But I was young and I guess in love. Not really, but I really liked her. So that was day one. I think we hung out that day, and then she was going out to hang out with some friends, and they were going to someplace fancy, and I didn't bring any fancy clothes, mainly because I'm not fancy, and it was my first trip, and I didn't really think we were doing anything but hanging out for a few days. I was going to be there for like, say 4 or 5 days. I don't remember anymore. So I was like, well, I'll go buy some pants. And we went out shopping for pants. And that was like a disaster. Because I could just tell, like, she's like, why are we buying pants? And what is going on? And I tried to find some pants. I don't know. Just ended up without pants because I think like we were just not getting along at all. And this is day one. So she went out with her friends. And I think I stayed home in her apartment. I don't know what I did on the first night. I do know on the second day, I left. Now, I should say that I didn't have any money to get a hotel or do the things that you would do now when things are not working out at all. I'd get a hotel or, maybe fly home early or just do something. So I just left early in the morning, left all my stuff there, left early in the morning, and then stayed out all day sightseeing in Chicago on my own because she didn't want to hang out with me, and I didn't want to hang out with her at that point. And I went all around Chicago, very sad. It was very depressing. I think I bought and read an entire book during that time. So Remember the Titans. I do remember that, the movie. And I went to like every free museum there was. I went to the Sears Tower. At the time it was the Sears Tower. And I saw all of Chicago. And I did that for a couple of days. I basically had to keep doing that for a couple of days. I would go back, and we were cordial enough that I could like go back to the apartment. But it was very awkward because it just became a place where like I slept in the living room, and then I had to get out of there because like we just couldn't spend any time together. So where am I going with this? Eventually, I was out at a bar, and I think the World Series was on. It was the Yankees and the Mets. I'm giving you guys so much information. I'm sorry. I should have planned this story better, but I'm just giving you all the details and facts so you know I'm telling the truth. the Mets and Yankees were playing in the World Series. I remember sitting in a bar, and I didn't drink much. I was young. I mean, I was old enough to drink, but like I wasn't cool with like hanging out in bars by myself yet. Not that I'm cool with that now. I don't want to admit to that on stage to all of you. I just feel, well, oh, all right, yeah. That's a good sign, Jim. So I met some people. Actually, people felt bad for me, and they're like, why are you sitting here all night by yourself, also reading a book? And which you shouldn't do in a bar by yourself. Like, hipsters do that now, and it's kind of cool, but at the time, it was pretty sad. It was like a sad sign. So I did that. So some people were like, well, you should come hang out with us. And I went and I hung out with these people that worked at this bar in like a whole nother neighborhood, and I made friends, and I hung out with them the next night, and I had a great time in Chicago. So the point of my story is love does hurt, and going halfway across the country can sometimes, for love, can sometimes lead to hate. It can make you hate a person. It can make another person hate you. It can make you hate yourself. But what love did do was make me love the city of Chicago. It's a great city. So you should all visit there someday. That is my story.